Welcome everybody to another edition of The Prophet. Today I have a special guest. Greg Scarpa Jr. is here, longtime member of the Colombo crime family, a legend in New York City history. Greg, welcome. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Let's just start off with your dad.
Okay.
Do you know anything about your dad's childhood, his family, how he was raised at all? I know he's a Brooklyn guy, right?
Yeah, he's a Brooklyn guy. And yeah, he was, he was just a regular guy dating. And my uncle was into this life,
right,
into the mob life, and actually spoke to my father about it and said, this is the way, My father, ended up going with him, and that's how he got involved right away. But as a child, there's not much that...
Right. So at the time that was the Profaci family, right? Before the Colombos. That's the era he went in, I guess, right?
Yes.
Okay. And do you know what he was doing back then? What was the mainstay of that family and his crew? They were like just a little bit of everything out on the street, and
yeah. Well, there was little problems out there at that time. That's when Joe Gallo, had some problems with the Profaci family. He wanted to more or less take over. But before a few guys got hurt, but before it really got started, Profaci ended up getting cancer, and Joe Gallo went to prison.
Right. And
so that really didn't go nowhere until Joe Gallo got back out, and then Colombo was there then when he got back out.
Right.
And then there was a feud with that because Gallo felt that he had a lot more coming than what they were giving him.
Right.
So he ended up, having problems with Joe Colombo.
Right. So at some point, your dad meets your mom, Connie.
Right.
They start to have a family.
Right.
How many siblings you have? 2 brothers and a sister? Was that it?
I have, let me see, I got 1 sister and 1 half-sister. To me, they're both sisters, and that's, so I got 2 sisters.
Right.
And 2 brothers, and 1 got killed.
Okay. In, I think it was 1953, they say that your dad did his first hit, which would make him eventually make him a made man in the family. Is that your understanding?
Yeah, I think, it was around between 53 and 55 he got straightened out.
Right. Now, there comes a time where your dad gets arrested for an armed robbery, which is going to give him a significant sentence in prison.
Okay.
And he works out a deal with the FBI, apparently, to be like one of their operatives.
Right.
And at one point in time, they decide to send him down to Mississippi.
Right.
During the, all the racial tensions and the things that the Ku Klux Klan were doing down there.
Right.
Lighting churches on fire, crosses,
right,
everything else. So they send your dad down. They have a thing called the top echelon of operatives, and
right,
he becomes one of those. And they send him down to Mississippi, and he checks in with some agents at a
right,
hotel. They give him a gun,
yes,
and some cash, and let him go and do his thing.
Right.
Did he ever talk to you about any of that stuff? Or?
Yes, he did. Yeah, he said it was, I think it was 1964 was the first one. I'm trying to think of the name. And 66 was Dahmer. That was the fire. The store, right? The guy registered voters. Yeah, so in 64, they killed a guy, Medgar Evers, who was a big, member of the spokesman for the black community. I think they had something crazy like 60 cross burnings, countless beatings of people, and they were trying to stop blacks from voting, right,
because that was gonna upset the good old boy network down there, and they were gonna lose their power.
Yeah.
But 3 civil rights workers went missing.
Right.
They were down there looking into the burning of a church. I think it was the Mount Zion Church.
Right.
And also some things that year they were trying to get people to vote and things like that. And a corrupt cop down there pulled them over, got them to a police station, then got some guys together. They followed them away from the police station.
Right.
Chased them, ran them off a road, killed them, and buried them in a swamp. and the FBI was desperately looking for him, and in comes your dad.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't hurt a swamp.
Right.
They were buried in I don't know how many feet of like red clay.
Clay, right.
Yeah. You know, and they left it up to my father to, you know, find out where the bodies are.
Right.
It was very important. This was coming from Hoover, from the president, Johnson, I think, was at that time.
Yeah, and J. Edgar Hoover knew about your dad and everything. It was like, you know, this is like such great history in that, you know, you heard about the government working with people from organized crime in the past, like during the war, look after the docks and things like this. But this is like really like, you know, specifically utilizing a guy to do this. And so apparently he tracks down one of the Klan leaders down there.
Right.
And, you know, I guess they more or less kidnapped him, brought him to like a hotel room.
Right.
And the story goes, they wanted to know where the bodies were. So the story goes that your dad put a gun to the guy's head and he gave some information. It wasn't true.
Right.
Then he put a gun in his mouth or something like that. The guy
he was holding back. The guy was, you know, he was staying strong, so to speak.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And then I think, did it end to something where he ran like a razor along the guy's crotch and said,
well,
you better
that's what he was going to do.
Right.
That's what he was going to do, and he would have did it, you know, and the guy didn't want no, and he blurted out where the bodies were. It was amazing, you know.
Yeah. And at the time, your dad, I guess, had a girlfriend, Linda Shiro.
Right.
Was she really with him down there at the time? Because that's what they say.
Yeah, yeah. She went down there. He took her all over.
Yeah, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Like she was his partner.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And, yeah, she was down there, and she waited for him in the hotel and all that stuff. And then, you know, then they went partying after that. You know, they left.
Yeah, to Miami or something like that, right?
Right.
Did he get something like 30 grand or something like that? I've heard that number mentioned.
He didn't tell me the figure. He told me that he got paid well. You know.
Yeah.
So, you know, I really don't know, you know, the figure.
Yeah. So you know, I think you know, the guy not only the guy gave up everybody basically.
Yeah.
And in 1967. They call him again.
66, I believe it was.
66?
Yeah, I think
there was a gentleman by the name of Vernon Dahmer. He had a store that he used, and the local black people could come in and also register to vote.
Right.
And again, this was a danger to their network down there and running the state as they chose to. And so they came to burn his store down. He came out with a gun, and the Klansmen shot and killed him, set his house on fire. And, you know, here it is again. Nobody's going to be a witness. You know, the cops are corrupt, the judges are corrupt, the juries are corrupt, and it's a real hard thing to do. So they sent him down.
Well, you know, the thing was that he didn't get killed right away.
Right.
From, you know, how my father explained to me is that this guy was, the place was on fire. Now he was looking to save his family.
Right.
Okay, and getting him out the back way, and he got shot, and they got out safe, okay? But he ended up collapsing into their arms, you know.
Wow.
Yeah, he made it out to where they were and then collapsed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in order to, you know, one of the first people they sought to question, well, to send you down was a guy, Lawrence Bird.
Right.
And he owned an appliance store.
Yeah.
So your dad and an undercover agent, I believe, went in, pretended to buy a TV set.
Right.
And then they asked him to help him put it in the car.
Right.
And then when he came out, they just shoved him in the back of the car and took him to a military base.
Right.
And the guy made something like a 22-page confession.
Yeah.
After a bit of a beatdown or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when he left the base, he reported it as someone robbed his store, and he was that scared and whatever. And again, that case led to the conviction of many people involved in, you know, all sorts of stuff, like with the beatings of people, and you know, it's like they had their own mafia down there. Those guys, you know.
I just want to let you bring this up. Is that when I learned all this here, I was away.
Wow.
He was visiting me, my father, and he would start telling me a lot while I was away.
Wow.
That's how I learned all this stuff. You know, I was shocked myself.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I had no idea what he was doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And, you know, he was telling me that, you know, I'm in prison. And you know, he says he's got a lot going with with those people, but there's more to it. In other words, what they were doing was they made a deal with my father and the FBI, and the deal was that, see, a lot of things that you read 302s that my father told him this, told him that.
Right.
He wasn't privy to what they're saying he told them.
Right.
Okay? How they learned that was they had illegal bugs all over the place.
Wow.
Okay? And when they learned something, because my father was a top echelon,
Right.
all right, when they learned something, they would now go to the judge and say, Greg Scarpa, top echelon, gave us this information. But the information they got from the illegal bugs.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Now they get the okay to get a legal bug.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
you know.
It's like making a dirty phone call or something like that to dirty up a phone. They did it.
Right.
They cheated their way in it.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the more and more we find out about things that have gone on in the FBI over the years, more people are shocked that, you know,
Yeah.
I could understand them doing it back then where things were looser and they thought they had the support of everybody. They really weren't afraid. But
Right.
So you didn't find this out until
Till I was
late.
away. He was letting me know things as, you know, I went away, you know. When I was outside, nobody knew this. Nobody. I mean,
Right.
I don't know how he did it, but he did it.
So when you were growing up as a kid, when did you find out, like, your dad wasn't, you know, like everybody else's dad in the neighborhood? Your dad was a guy who, you know, mafia guy. Yeah. How did?
Yeah. Well, you know what? I lived in Staten Island. In Staten Island, they used to have this paper called, and we would call it a rag paper, but it was a Staten Island Advance.
Right.
And there was different articles going into that. You know, they did their investigations, and they would be saying, you know, different mobsters that lived on the island. And my father would come up that he's a lieutenant in the Colombo family, blah, blah, blah. And it went to the school kids and everything like that, and started, and my sister got all upset, you know, like asking me, is Daddy Mafia? Well, you know, I said, Dad, don't worry about it. You know, I would tell her, you know, don't, you know, it's nothing. You know, they
Right.
make these things up in the newspaper. Just
Right,
ignore
right.
when people say that. You know what I mean? But yeah, we were a young age when we found out.
Yeah.
You know.
And did anybody else in your, out of your siblings, did anyone else get involved in organized crime? Was any?
No, nobody else did except my brother Frankie. When I was away, my father had called him for a little help fixing the cars up that were getting damaged and things like that. But
Right.
yeah, as far as getting involved with the war, no.
Right.
Yeah.
So how did you? How is it with your relationship with your dad that it kind of led to you becoming a part of, you know, the crew or whatever? How did that kind of transpire over the years?
How I became a partner.
Yeah. How you know? I guess how.
And it was how I got involved.
How you found your way into to life? Did your
Right.
dad kind of take you along a little bit, or how did?
What happened was, you know, I wasn't such a good boy. Okay, I'd be getting into trouble,
Right.
doing, you know, stupid kid things, robbing hubcaps, doing that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Crazy things, and it would get back to my father. One time, I took his car in the middle of the night, picked up a couple of my friends. We were kids. We went around the corner. We ended up robbing a bar. Had all the liquor and everything. We put it in my father's trunk. Then we went home, and I went to sleep. My father going to Brooklyn now. He's hearing this jingling. Okay? So he knows it's something in the trunk. He opens it up, and he was pissed off. Forget about it.
Right.
So he came back home, and he blew his top with me.
Yeah.
And he told me, he says, you know, Greg, he says, I think what I got to do is, you know, you got to get away from these kids out here that you're staying with. I'm going to start taking you to Brooklyn.
Right.
Okay? And I'm just sitting there listening. I said, well, do I have to go every day? You know, because I want to stay out with the,
Right.
you know.
Right.
He says, no, he says, you know, you take the weekend off. He says, but I want you to know that as far as, you know, whatever you see in Brooklyn, it stays there. Okay? You don't bring it home. And I said, yeah, that's good. But I wasn't sure about if I wanted that. You know what I'm saying? So I ended up going to Brooklyn with my father.
Right.
Then he takes a ride with me. He says, "Come on, take a ride with me. I'm gonna make you meet my boss."
Wow.
So I told him, I says, "Your boss? I thought you were the boss." So he says, "No." He says, "Greg," he says, "everybody has a boss,
Right.
okay? And I have a boss, and we're gonna go see him right now. I want to introduce him to you." And that was Joe Colombo.
Wow.
Okay, so the best is when we turn onto 86th Street. Who's walking across the street is Joe Colombo, Rocky, a couple other guys. I don't even remember their names. It's so long ago. But anyway, they were walking across the street, and they had the fedoras, the long. I said, "Wow, this was the real thing." I'm saying to myself, I said, "Wow." I said, "That's what I want to be."
Yeah.
And that's how it started. Matter of fact, excuse me, we went into he had a real estate front, Joe Colombo. We went into his office, and I was fighting at the time. I used to box.
Right.
Okay, and he had told me that him and a couple of friends went and saw me box and everything like that. He says, "You're good." He said, "But you took a lot of shots on the head." He says, "And I just want you to know," he says, "there's a lot of easier ways of making money." So I says, "Yeah, thank you, Joe." And with that, it was my birthday when we were there, and he hands me $500.
Wow.
Right. So I show my father. My father goes, "Give it back to him." So I said, "Joe." Joe goes, No, you keep it." Now I'm in the middle, Joe Colombo and my father.
Right.
So and Joe tells my father, he says, "Greg, who's the boss?" He says, "Since you put it that way," he says, "put it in your pocket."
Yeah, Joe Colombo was a real character. He was unlike any other guy out there, right?
Yeah, I tell you the truth, he was sharp. I liked him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of his kids, Chris Colombo, was one of my neighbors. I mean, not immediately. We lived a town apart. I met him once over the years, and he was another character.
Mm-hmm.
And those guys kind of really loved their dad. They had a tough way to go, I guess, when he got shot. But
right.
Yeah, he was a really
what I do want to bring up is that I'm saying about meeting Joe Colombo, and that's what I want to do. I'm here also to let the youngsters know that that's not the way to go.
Right.
Don't make the mistake that I made.
Right.
Okay? It's a big mistake.
Yeah.
Because that life, you're either going to get killed or you're going to go to prison forever.
Right.
Okay? And you could have fun for a little bit of time,
right,
but it's going to end.
Yeah, I mean, you could count on like one hand the amount of guys that make it to the end with lots of money, nothing to fear.
Right. You could count it on, right.
Because you're always waiting for a RICO or something to catch up to you.
It just don't happen.
Yeah.
So, like, again, you youngsters that are listening to this, don't get involved.
Right.
It's bad, could I say shit? Bad shit.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. There was this Dr. Shkolnick.
Yeah.
He was, I guess, he was a guy. He ran some abortion clinics in the city, right?
Yeah, they had in the city. Him and this Israeli
Lilani Dejani or something like that.
Right.
She was like a Miss Israel or something, right?
She was right, Miss Israel. Correct.
And she had a place. She had an apartment, I think, on Sutton Place in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, they always refer to that apartment as a place that your dad had.
Right.
You'll see it mentioned here and there.
Yeah.
And he has some kind of relationship with her.
Yeah. Well, they got married.
They got married, right.
Right.
Okay. But her business partner ends up not want your dad involved in the business in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
And reaches out to a member of another family.
Right.
And says, "Hey, could you get this guy out of here?" And then he says, "No, it can't happen." And then
he made the mistake by saying, "Could you get this guy out of here?" And when they told him, "No, it can't happen," just like you probably know the rest. He said, "Well, then I'm just going to have to go to the feds."
Right, and that
was his demise.
And was that and were you involved in that? So he had to go.
Yeah.
And were you involved in that hit, or was that just?
Well, I'm not actually going to say anything about the hits that I was involved with, because I just
no, that's fine.
No, I just don't want to start talking about that, because I don't want to have the families go through it again.
Yes. And I'm just looking. That was Joe DiPalermo was the guy they approached, I guess. He was a Lucchese guy, a drug guy.
Yeah.
And yeah, and here's the thing. I'm not interested in any gruesome details.
Right.
I think why it's important is it's a relationship your dad had with this woman that he marries.
Right.
And everyone always referred to that Sutton Place apartment.
Right.
So I'm assuming too that, you know, maybe through her businesses he could put money through there. He could do things like that. I don't know, obviously.
Right.
But yeah. Well, let's then. So when you finally go in and you're a part of, let's say, the crew now, were you part of your dad's crew? Were you working for somebody else?
Yeah. No, I was at the beginning. I was with Charlie Moose. I don't know if you're Panarella.
Yeah.
I was in that crew, and so was my father. Okay, and we were under him. My father and Charlie, they had like a personality clash. Like they really didn't like each other.
Right.
But very nice to each other. But
Right.
Charlie was the captain. Okay. My father was under him, and I'm around my father.
Right.
Okay. And with that, I would always, on my way, because Charlie would be out in Staten Island. So on my way to Brooklyn, I would stop and see Charlie. He's got any messages for my father or whatever. And with that, it was like every day I would stop there. Charlie really liked me.
Right.
Okay, you know, he heard about me doing some things, and he liked me a lot. I got into a beef out there once with the Bellotti Gambino
Tommy
family.
Blah,
Yeah, Tommy, right. Well, actually, it was Joe. Joe came down to the bar where we were, and we had a problem over there. We got straightened out, but we ended up hurting one of the guys in there.
Right.
Okay, so Charlie, you know, sat us down and says, you know, I like that we have a beef, but we come out winning. Okay,
Right.
He says, but I'm not happy that there was a gun involved. You're never supposed to, you know, have a problem in a joint to begin with. Now there was a gunshot. Okay. And one of the guys that I was there with had the gun. Matter of fact, it was Bobby Zam. I don't know if you know him. So he had the gun. So they were wanting to put a beef that a gunshot was done in there. You know. So what happened was Charlie now wants a meeting my father, me, and a couple of the kids that were around that were in there. And it was in a diner. So I'm hanging out with my father in New Jersey, okay, at the horse farm. So we're hanging out over there, and what happens is it's 2 o'clock. I said, Dad, we got to be there by 3. I says, you want to go? He said, no, you go, Greg. I says, you want me to go see Charlie? You know, he wants he wants you there. He said, Greg, just tell him I'm busy. I said, wow. I can't believe he's saying, because Charlie was Charlie, you know, he was, you know. So we go in, I go in, and we're there with Bobby and a couple of guys, and we're sitting at, and he was all right, Charlie, you know, and like I said, he was happy that we come out winners and stuff like that. He says, just, you know, you just can't go in these joints with a gun and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? Lo and behold, what happens is I see my father's car pulling up now. Okay? So I said, oh, here he is now, Charlie. You know, I had told him that he wasn't coming, that he was busy. So he said, oh, he's here? I said, yeah. So anyway, as my father's walking in, Charlie now, I guess he wants to put a show on or something, I don't know. And he says, and if I find out who had the gun, I'm going to put it up their ass. You understand?
Right.
My father saw that, okay? Now, this is my father's captain.
Right.
My father saw that, and he thought he was, like, more or less yelling at me. He fucking banged the fucking table. He says, let me tell you something. Don't you ever, and he's threatening Charlie.
Wow.
Charlie says, I'm going upstairs with this, you know. So my father says, listen, I don't give a fuck if you go to Jesus Christ. I'll rip the skin off your face. My father was crazy, you know. So after all that, we ended up leaving. I said, Dad, I said, it was all straightened out. He was good. You know, he was good with us. I said, this is a problem now. He says, no problem, Greg. Don't even worry about it, all right? And that's what it was. They straightened it out with Alley Boy, Persigo, and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah. So speaking of the Persico, so the Colombo Wars, I guess, start when the family's having trouble. Where Carmine Persico is facing big sentences, he's in. Alley Boy Persico, he's in on a 10-year sentence or something like that, right?
Right.
And then it's who's going to run the family. So they decide to rule by committee at some time, right? Is that true?
Yes, yes. It was, at that time it was Donnie Shacks and Jerry Lang.
Okay.
And those two were running it.
And then Vic Arena now starts to make
somehow Vic Arena got, well, what happened was Donnie Shacks and Jerry Lang had to go to prison.
Right.
And now it was Vic Arena.
Right. And I think, wasn't it?
Excuse me. Well, before that, there was Joe T. and Jimmy Angelini, too. They were running it.
Okay.
And it eventually went to Vic Arena.
Yeah. So, and how did people feel about Vic maneuvering? I know at that time, too, he had something going with John Gotti. I think he was trying to drum up support.
Yeah.
For maybe have some, so John Gotti could have some power with his association with the family and voting and things.
And vice versa. In other words, that
Right.
Vic Arena now feels that he could have
Right.
the Gambinos helping him out if needed. Right. Okay. And after a while, now there was talk that Alley Boy Jr. was coming out and that his father was going to make him be the boss.
And that probably was the case. Right?
It was the case,
yeah.
Yes. And what happened was Vic Arena wasn't happy about that.
Right.
And he started polling the captains to, start asking around who are you happy with this guy and all this kind of stuff. But you got to be very careful because with this Jimmy Angelini, they did the same thing, and they ended up killing Jimmy Angelini because they went and told Junior that he's polling the captains. He would never go against Persico.
Right.
Jimmy Angelini. He was solid Persico guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? But they lied on him and got him killed.
Wow.
And so with that, now they had Carmine Sessa doing the same thing. Right. So now with him doing the same thing, Carmine now was a little bit different. He says, I'm not going to get killed over here. So he went to my father. And my father told him, he says, no, don't get involved with that there. And they told Teddy Persico, who visits Junior, okay, and what's going on. And then he says, well, we got to kill Vic.
Right.
Okay. And
was that Carmine Sessa set that up? Didn't they sit outside his house or something?
Well, they went to Long Island to go by his house and see if they see him leaving or anything like that. They were going to do it. They were ready to do it.
And he saw them, right, or something like that?
Yeah,
it
was to me like that was a real. So the guy saw you. So what you do is you wave to him, say, hey, Vic, let me see you for a minute.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't make it like he saw us and take off.
Right.
That started everything.
Right.
But now if he would have says, Vic, 1 minute, I want to see you for a minute. You get out of the car and you whack him. That's all.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
So now that starts like basically it's basically the Persico Arena factions start. Why were you guys loyal to Persico? Was there any? Was that the best bet for everybody for your crews or?
Yeah, well, certain people liked Vic, and certain people didn't like him. My father didn't trust him. Right. So we went that way.
Yeah. So let's see. So it says, did you guys? There was an attempted hit on Joe Tolino. Was that one of Arena's guys?
Yeah.
And then Bill Cutolo's guys hit Vinny Figaro and Rosario Nastasi. Does that sound right? Or
Wild Bill's?
Yeah, Wild Bill's crew.
Say it again. Who
Vinny Figaro and Rosario Nastasi. I don't know what their street names would be.
Yeah, Black Sam, I think, is one of them. Yeah, I'm not sure their names myself. I know them like some.
And then you guys hit Nicky Black.
Yeah, that was towards the end. Well, that Fizarro, the one that was hanging up the lights.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Yeah, he was hanging up the Christmas lights. My father saw him, told Larry Mazza to pull over. My father stuck a rifle out and shot him right off the ladder.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Where was that, in Bensonhurst or in?
That was in Bensonhurst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's Larry Mouse is another interesting story about how he gets involved, I guess, through Linda, right? I guess that relationship.
Right.
But back to the wars. Then Joe Scopo got hit by that kid.
Right.
He was like John Papa. At some point.
Was it him? Yeah. I don't remember who did the whack out. Matter of fact, when Joe Scopo got hit, I was away.
And then Arena eventually goes to jail anyway, right?
Right.
And that's kind of like things start to cool down. And
Right. Yeah. There was a lot of pinches, and my father was going to get pinched, and this Joey Ambrosino went bad. He had his car was bugged, and he ended up saying everything about my father doing these killings. Okay, and now it's getting back to the agent that's trying to keep my father out. You know what I'm saying? And then at one point, this guy Lampesi gets shot. Okay, and supposedly my father got the address and everything from the agent.
Wow.
Yeah, and
did your dad speak to that a lot? Did he say when? So the agent is Lynn DeVecchio, right?
Right.
Did he speak to?
No, what he used to do is say that he had his friend. He wouldn't even say his girlfriend.
Right.
But we know he was a joke when he was saying girlfriend. But he told me on the side that he's got somebody. But I was starting to get a little something wrong here, And this was actually before I went away. He was saying he wanted this kid Cosmo. He wanted us to bury him. He was told by the agent that he's a weak link and he's going to go bad.
Wow.
I love this kid Cosmo. I was out at the time, and he says, Greg, you got to dig a hole. We got to put Cosmo in. I said, I ain't doing that, Dad. I said, this kid is solid.
Right.
There's no way that this kid is. He said, Greg, my guy told me this. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
My guy's always got the right information. I asked him, I said, Dad, who is this guy? I said, is he an agent? And when he hesitated and he said, yeah. And at that time, you just don't hear about agents being bad. So I started getting a bad vibe then.
Right.
And I told him, I said, well, I'm not going to do with that. I said, this kid, I know he's got little twin girls and all that. I said, I'm just not going to do it, bro. He said, all right, I'll take care of it. I said, Dad, listen to me. This guy is not going to go bad. Let it go. Okay? He says, all right. So anyway, I had to go on the lam, and I ended up going to prison. And what they did was they dug a hole, going to put Cosmo in there. The day that they're going to whack Cosmo and put him in there, everybody got pinched.
Wow.
So he got saved.
Wow.
And guess what? He did not flip.
Wow.
All right. So here you were going to get a guy that was going to get killed for nothing.
Yeah. So it could have been something like a conversation where, hey, you should watch this guy. He's coming up on a wire, or someone talked about him, and it was taken as he's actively doing stuff. And
right.
You hear about that a lot. I mean, you mentioned the guy before who wasn't a rat, and
right.
Pulling the guys to see who's going to be with Vic Arena had nothing to do with it, and he's gone.
Right, yeah.
And there's a lot of that treachery going on.
A lot of treachery, that's what it is, a lot of treachery. Like, just for power reasons, you're going to hurt somebody that's solid, a good person. It's just not,
Right.
And that's why I say to the youngsters, again, you're going to end up, in this life, you'll end up killing your best friend.
Right.
Or vice versa.
Right. There's
your
no
friend
honor.
is going to kill you.
The things that they talk about, the honor, the code, and all that, it really doesn't exist.
No.
Right. And I know you don't want to glorify any of these homicides or stuff, but they are a part of the history.
Yeah.
So just ask you about a few of them. And there's one that I see a lot where people talk about is Mikey Scar's brother.
Yeah.
What was that? What was the reason that he had to go, or he went?
Well, yeah. What happened with him was there was at that time we had like a bypass crew, and we were doing we were robbing. We were going in banks for the weekend,
right,
and doing what we have to do. And
like bank burglaries.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. We'd stay in there the whole weekend, open the boxes, and go. And what happened with him, you know, he was hearing it. He wanted to get involved, and he was telling everybody, you know.
Right.
You know, what's going on. He said, I'm trying to get involved with this here. They're able to shut off the alarms and go into banks and stuff like that. And he says they just did it again. And he got back to Jerry Lang. You know Jerry Lang?
No.
Okay, he was one of the guys in the committee running the Colombo family.
Right.
Okay, and he ended up telling my father that this guy's got to go.
Right.
Okay. And arrangements were made, and he went.
Was that sanctioned or?
Yeah, it was sanctioned, sure.
Okay.
You know, because Jerry Lang says to do it. He was the boss at the time.
Who was, and his name was Robert DiLeonardo. Mikey's brother was Robert.
Yeah, I think they called him Bucky.
Bucky, right.
Yeah,
right.
Bucky Leonardi, you know.
And who was he with?
He was under my father.
Yeah. Huh?
You know.
Okay. Anthony Frezza, what was the story behind his demise?
Anthony Frezza, let me think with him. Okay, Anthony Frezza was, he ended up going to a bar that Sammy the Bull owned. And he gets into a beef with somebody in there. And what he did was he went and got a gun, and he came and shot the guy. And the guy that he shot was a proposed guy going to propose by Sammy.
With the Gambinos, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And so with that, he knew what he did. He heard about it, and he took off. So with that, when he took off, nobody knew where this Frezza was. And this is what I'm talking about. We're all close with him, you know, and but he took off. Scappy at that time was our captain. Okay, and Scappy says, listen, we got to get this guy in, okay, and we got to wait for his call, and you got to talk him into coming in, you know what I mean? And, you know, so he ended up calling me, okay, and I told him, I said, listen, bro, I said, everything's getting straightened out. I said, you got to come in. Why we're doing this is because the Gambino family, you know, because of who he was,
right.
They wanted this.
You had to make right, yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? So with that, he's going to have to go. Okay. They wanted to do it, the Gambinos, and we actually said we'll clean up our own shit. We'll do it. You know what I mean? And finally, we talked him into coming back. That you'll be safe. You know what I mean? And he come back, set it up. A couple of kids brought him somewhere. And they whacked him. Like I said, I really don't like mentioning their names because now his family's got to hear it again. You know what I mean? So I really like to talk about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We don't have to talk about the method it was done.
Right.
Sal Cardacci.
Right.
What was the beef with him?
He was another one that had a beef with Billy Melly. Billy Melly was under me, okay, and what happened there was they were out stealing, and this Sal Cardacci ended up ratting out Melly. So Melly had a case, but he says that he wasn't going to go in and testify and get Billy off, but that wasn't it didn't matter. You know what I mean? So once that went downtown to Scappy, we got the okay to whack this guy, and he ended up coming into the candy store that we had next to the club, and he was walked in. Carmine Sessa was there with the piece, and as he walked, we said, "Yeah, just going over there where the bathroom was." As he went over there, Carmine whacked him.
Right.
Okay, and we ended up burying him in the basement. Okay, we buried him in the basement, and down the line, what happened was Carmine ended up flipping. Okay, so now there was guys sent to the candy store to get him out of there.
Right.
Okay, and they had to break in because it wasn't, so they had to break in, go in the basement, and take him out of there. Right. So they do that, coming out with garbage bags,
Right.
getting them out of there. So after they got the information from Carmine, the feds went there,
Right.
okay, to check it out. And there was nothing there, but they did find a pinky,
Wow.
and that was enough,
Wow.
you know, so, yeah.
Now, Scappy, what was his name? Scarpati? Was that
Yeah,
his name?
Scarpati, yeah.
Scarpati. He was a pretty violent guy, right? He was a pretty.
Yeah, he was, Scappy was a tough individual, but, you know, I loved the guy. He was, me and him were like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was like, you know, I used to go, because what happened was, we got away, and my father didn't want me, before I got straightened out, okay, my father spoke to Alley Boy and said, you know, the older one.
Right.
He says, Alley, he said, I'm looking to get my son in. Okay, he said, yeah, that shouldn't be a problem, you know, and, you know, my father was, with me was like unreal. He says, you know, Alley says, well, you know, what if I ask your son to chop up a body? What do you do it? My father said, let me tell you something about my son. He'll not only chop it up, he'll chew it and spit it out. I said, oh, God, you know. So that's how my father would tell people about me, okay?
Sure, you were glad to hear stuff like that.
Yeah, I said, it's like I said, this guy's unbelievable. So with that, Allie then, and he said, but the one thing, Allie, what I want you to do for me is if we do that, I don't want him with Charlie Moose. Charlie was like, you know, when you got straightened out, Charlie was be tough on you. You know what I mean? So with that, he said, yeah, we could arrange that. So the time came, it was Halloween night. What's his name? We just spoke of with the gasoline.
Mike Francis?
Yeah, he was there, and there was 10 of us getting straightened out that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, you know, we were all over there Halloween night, and we were all getting straightened out. Now, as we're getting, when it was my turn, I go in there. Charlie's in, all the captains are there. And you got, at that time, it was Tom DeBella.
Okay.
Okay. And he was the boss. And, well, acting boss, you know.
Right.
And the figurehead, you know. So with that, he was the boss over there, and he says, you know, look around the room, Greg. He tells me, he says, you know all these guys? They were all the captains there.
Right.
So I says, yeah, I know them all. So he said, what do you think of them? That caught me off guard. What do I think of them? I went like that. He said, well, you think that's funny? I said, no. I just don't know what to say. I says, they're wonderful people. That's all, you know, that's all I can say. So with that, he said, oh, okay. So now in Italian, they're going around the table who I'm going to be with.
Right.
And when they're finished with the speech, they point to Capo Regime.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie was waiting for me to go there, but he don't, and he points to Scarpati. Charlie's face like, what the hell happened here? Which he went now to my father. He says, you did your thing again, huh? You did your thing again. Yeah, so they didn't like each other. So now I'm with Scappy. I'm not stopping in Staten Island no more. I'm going downtown every day, see Scappy. Anything you want me to do, you know, I'm here.
Where was he out of? Where?
He was on Carroll Street and Fifth Avenue.
Yeah. Okay.
And, yeah, so, you know, I would see him all the time down there. We'd hang out. And, you know, he would also come to 13th Avenue where we were. But early in, you know, when I'd come in, I'd stop there first, you know, and we became real close, me and Scappy. Right. You know, I mean, I did things for him that, you know, like he says, you know, this kid is good, you know.
Right.
And with that, you know, I do want to say I was involved with a lot.
Right.
I'm not going to, I don't want to mention names, but I was involved with, I mean, from what the government is saying, they're talking 25 to 30 homicides.
Right.
You know, which I'm not proud of. And like I said, look where I ended up. And, you know.
Do you agree with the numbers they throw at guys? You know, like they'd say, your father killed 100 people or something like that. I find it hard. I mean, there's not enough mobsters on the street to kill.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's nonsense.
So, yeah.
Nonsense.
How they come about these numbers, I always found suspect, you know?
Yeah, you know, you'll get one person saying, Minga, I heard Greg say, you know, he stopped counting after 50.
Right.
It's all nonsense.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And, you know, he did a lot. I mean, he was, you know, and, you know, they called him the Grim Reaper.
Right.
But he wasn't the Grim Reaper. The only time he became Grim Reaper was during the war.
Right.
So all those years and everything like that, he was no Grim Reaper. He was,
Right.
Greg, and that was it.
Right.
And
And talking about treachery and things like that, and I'll bring up Mary Barry.
yeah.
Was it your understanding that it's rumored that the FBI agent might have put it in your dad's ear that she was an informant, or was cooperating, or was a potential threat
Yeah.
to the guys? Was that your understanding? Or?
Yeah, well, actually, that there was a lot being said that guy, DeVecchio, put that in my father's ear.
Right.
But it came from the Persicos, that they had a connection with somebody, who knows who, like agent, police, I don't know.
Right.
And they had said the same thing. And Junior sent word out that she's got to go. And then when people talk, like saying, they say, this guy's the worst of the worst because he killed the girl.
Right.
Any one of you mob guys that were ordered to do it, you would have had to do it.
Right. Right.
So it wasn't that he was mean, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'll tell you something about that. Mary Barry, I knew her very good.
Right.
Okay? And Mary Barry, matter of fact, she used to come into my club with the nightclub we had. It was called Gregory's Red Pussycat on 86th Street. And Alley Boy used to take her up there. Alley Boy used to say, Greg, he says, dance with my girl. I said, no, I ain't dancing with Alley. He said, Greg, I want you to dance with her. No, she's bored here, standing here with me. I said, Alley, I'm not dancing with her.
Right.
I don't know how to dance, I told him.
Right.
So with that, he was very close to her, and then he took off, and then the Persicos heard that. My father heard it from his guy, and like I said, the order came down that she had to go.
Yeah.
And it's a sin because, and when I heard that, I'm going to tell you something that nobody knows, okay? When that order came down, and I was, like I said, friends with her,
Right.
I went looking for her. I put my life in jeopardy.
Right.
Because it was hurtful to hear.
Yeah.
Okay? She was a pretty young lady,
Right.
And I went looking for her. And I was going to take the chance and hopefully that she wasn't going to say, Greg told me this.
Right. Right.
I was going to say, listen, let's get you a place and stay there until this blows over.
Right.
And I think she would have listened. Like I said, she was a knockaround girl.
Yeah.
And that's what happens too. A lot of people say, young lady, but when you're involved with this treachery in this kind of life, it could happen.
Yeah, and I mean, and obviously Alley Boy had a relationship with her.
Right.
And to turn on somebody that you really, you had a, I mean,
who turn on? What do you mean?
I mean, just the fact that you have a relationship with a woman,
Right.
and a lot older than her. You take her around, you wine and dine her,
Right.
You feel good because you have a younger woman with
Right.
you, and she's admiring the lifestyle,
Right.
And then you just, instead of having her picked up and brought somewhere, you decide the easiest action is to just get rid of her. which
Right.
is,
Yeah. It, like I said, to me it was a sin. Okay. And I wish I would have found her.
Yeah.
Because who knows today? Because if I would have found her, I was going to put her up.
And didn't Scarpa say something along the lines of, "We're all going to go to hell for this one"? Or
So
something
after
like
it was
that?
over, we were in the club, and he was sitting down, Scarpa, and he says, just like you guys know, you probably already know. He says we're all going to hell after that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Yeah. But
yeah,
again, like I said, a lot of people are saying my father is, because he did it, you know what I'm saying? So they're saying that he's the worst of the worst. I mean, he was the worst, I mean, he was, but not for that. Like I said, any mobster gets ordered, they're going to have to do it or they're going.
Yeah.
You understand?
Who were the guys that you were close to that you did a lot of stuff with? Who was like part of the crew that you were?
Well, that was a thing too. With me, I had a lot of young kids around me.
Right.
This Kevin Granada, he was my guy.
Right.
Okay, he was my number one guy. I trusted him like you have no idea, and he had balls. He was a good guy, and he had a lot of guys around him that were actually with me because through him.
Right.
So, but I'd have to say him, Billy Melly, who I mentioned
Right.
with the Kadachi thing, him, and Mario. Though Mario was like, you know, he was back and forth. My father with me, you know,
Right.
it was the same thing. But Larry and Jimmy, Larry Mazur and Jimmy Del Mastro, they were with my father.
Mario was
Mario
Palagreco?
Palagreco, yeah.
And he had a brother too, right?
Right. John, and he had a couple of brothers, and I forgot his other brother's name. But yeah.
What was your main? What was making money for you guys? I know you guys had a lot of marijuana stuff here and there, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, we had a marijuana spot that was selling, like, they were selling bags, these young kids.
Right.
And what happened was this Nicky DiCarlo came over to me, and he says, Greg, he says, this kid Peter, he says, he's got a problem with these Irish guys from downtown. I said, what kind of problem? So he says, well, he's got a big marijuana spot in Staten Island. He says, and they're telling him they're taking it from him.
Right.
And he's a young kid, you know, so I'm wondering if we can help him. I said, you know, we can't get involved with stuff like that.
Right.
You know, so he said, well, you know, I said, well, what kind of money is he making? He said, they're doing $20,000 a day. So I said, what? $20,000 a day?
I'll be there in 5 minutes.
Yes. So with that, now I brought it to upstairs, Scarpa and everybody, you know. And that's the thing, even though it was supposedly against the rules, but when you start hearing money like that,
Right.
we'll turn our head this way, you know what I mean, and just bring in the money. You know what I'm saying?
Irish guys, were they like Westie guys, or were they?
No,
just,
they were. Geez, I forgot. They were just. It was like an Irish crew that was from downtown. They were like tough kids, you know. And one of them, they think it had to do with the pot, because he had a pot spot in Staten Island, another area, in Clove Lakes, and you know, this guy here, he ends up getting whacked in the park. But he didn't get whacked because of the spots that the government was trying to say, or they did say.
Right.
He got whacked because he made a threat that he was going to go rob Greg Sr. in the club. He says, I know this guy carries a lot of money. I don't care who he is. This the type of guys they were, okay? They were kids, but
Right.
cowboys. You know what I'm saying? So once that got back to us, the order was to kill him, and they killed him in the park.
Oh wow, in Staten Island.
Yeah, yeah.
So, as far as doing business, like with your dad, were you ever a part of his daily operations? You were always kind of, you had your own thing.
No, me and my father were partners.
Okay.
Right down the line. But everything that he did, anything I did, we'd split.
What is the origin of the name, the Wimpy Boys Social Club?
The Wimpy Boy, why that's the Wimpy? You know, a lot of people ask, you know, why did these guys, like as tough as that they are, why they call the Wimpy Boys
Right.
Social Club? The only reason is that the charter was Wimpy Boys when we got to the club. My father didn't want to now go
Right.
change the charter and all that, so we just left it.
Okay.
You know, it was not, you know.
Yeah, because there was no Wimpy Boys hanging out.
No, there was no Wimpy Boys there. No. There was bodies being carried out of there.
Right. What, yeah, if you get called to the Wimpy Boys Social Club, you don't want to go, right?
A lot of people don't want to go.
Right.
Right, because they're just not sure if they're going to walk out.
Right.
You know?
What was your downfall as far as getting arrested and convicted and all that? What was the...
Well, what happened with me was I went on the lam, okay, and everybody got pinched, and we were waiting for the case to be over, okay, and we saw how it went and everything like that, and what happened was I wasn't ready to give up. My father wanted me to give up. He was telling me that his friend, DeVecchio,
Right.
is telling him that the DEA is really mad at me because what happened was I had gotten I got brought in Florida where I was on the lam.
Right.
Okay, but it was all worked out with my wife at the time, what name we were under and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But I had no ID when I got pulled over. They brought me in. Matter of fact, they found a little cocaine in the car.
Right.
And they brought me in for that. Okay. And now I'm saying I'm on the lam over here. I'm nailed.
Right.
And I told him, I said, the only reason why I'm here, I says, is because my wife is not well. I says, and I'm bringing her out here to rest up and, you know, bring her back when she feels better. And he says, yeah, but he says, we're going to have to mark you down as a fugitive, which was really bad because I had no ID.
Right.
But I talked him into it. I said, listen, why don't you call my wife? Now, you know, we already made the plan.
Right.
I said, why don't you call my wife and ask her the information, my name and everything like that. You'll see it matches.
Right.
I'd rather not be put down as a fugitive because then, you know, who knows how long I got to stay here before I could get bailed out. So he calls up. I said, but be nice to her, though. I said, because she's not well. She ended up getting a little nasty. He got nasty, and he hung up. I said, what the fuck did you do? I told you she was, and I got into a beef with him, but then I said, let me hold back over here. I said, listen, you're right. I says, you know, she's not well, and this is why she acted like that, but you got the name and everything like that. Why don't you just, I was under Salvatore Perry. Okay? And he ended up going for, matter of fact, one detective come walking in, and when he come walking in, he says, boy, you look familiar. You know why he's saying that? I was just on America's Most Wanted. Wow. He saw it, but he couldn't place me where, He's going, you look so familiar, I can't place where I saw you. I said, probably saw me around, you know, but he saw that thing, you know.
Wow.
And with that, they ended up, and the next day, I got Maria on the phone. I says, call my father, tell him he's got to send $4,000 down and get me out, you know. So you had to hear him, you know what I'm saying? And with that, 4,000 came, and I got out the next morning before the prince got back.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
So, yeah.
You're lucky on that one.
Yeah, yeah. So I got out, and that's why the DEA was mad at me, because I was trying to look different when they were taking my pictures and stuff when I got pinched. So I was smiling.
Right.
So they were saying, look at this fucking guy on the lam, and he's smiling at us.
Yeah.
He's smiling at us, they're saying.
You fooled them, and then you're smiling on top of it.
Exactly.
So they took it as an insult.
Exactly. And that's what now the FBI, the Vecchio, was telling my father. My father says, Greg, he said, these people can end up shooting you. You know what I mean? He said, why don't you give up? I said, I'm not ready yet. That. I you know.
Right.
And then eventually what happened was they were on where I might be, and they were passing out flyers in New Jersey of me, pictures of me and my wife.
Wow. Okay.
And with that, me and my wife were in the hotel. We're getting ready the next day to have this house that was secluded, nice. Would have been maybe still there. Right. So anyway, with that, she ends up, while we were over there, we were drinking, we were having our, you know, we were partying over there, me and my wife. Okay?
Right.
Next day, we're going to that house. And what happens is we end up doing our thing and then going to sleep.
Right.
Okay? I don't know this until my second case when I'm reading all the discovery, because we just couldn't understand how they found me. Okay? And I started getting a delusion again with my father. I said, geez, I don't know what the hell is going on here. You know, he kept on saying he wanted me to give up, give up, give up. And what happens is, after all those years, I'm reading the discovery, and in the discovery it says how I got caught. And how I get caught was, while I'm sleeping, my wife decided to go out of the room, go to the lobby, and buy cigarettes. They spotted, the guy called up. He called up and he says, listen, he says, the woman on the flyer is here. Right. I don't know if I didn't see him. Right. They said, if she's there, he's there. They came out and they got me.
Wow.
That was it.
And that was when? What year was that?
Back 1987 and 1987.
And were you in for, that was it?
That was it. Never saw the street again until 3 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. When you, I guess it was when you were in the MCC, you had contact with Ramzi Youssef?
Yeah.
That was one of the things. Was that a legit thing? They always.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
They made it, yeah, sure. That was really legit. You know, I mean, this was, you know, these are people that hurt
Right.
Americans,
Right.
you know, citizens.
Right.
Okay?
That was
Fuck them.
he was the mastermind of the '93 bombing
Exactly.
of the World Trade Center. Right.
Yeah. And you want to know something? He was also the mastermind of the last one.
Right.
It was his uncle, Kahid Sheikh Mohammed,
Right.
that got in touch with Osama bin Laden. Okay, and why he got in touch with Osama bin Laden was the information that Ramzi Youssef gave him.
Right.
They started partying in MCC because Osama bin Laden liked the plan. It was going to work, and they were going to do it.
Wow.
You know, and a lot goes into it, and a lot's to be said. See, I got. I'm not going to go too much into it
Right.
because I am working on a docu-series.
Right.
Little by little, you know, it'll say the whole thing.
Right.
What I did from there to the Oklahoma bombs.
Right.
Okay.
Yes. What were you in Terre Haute? When you
No, I was in with the Oklahoma City bombs.
Tim-
I was in Colorado.
owned
The
was
Supermax.
Supermax?
Yeah, yeah.
Was that Terry
Terry Nichols.
Terry Nichols?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was something like he knew where he had let it out that he had some explosives still stored somewhere, and
Exactly.
then the
yeah.
government wasn't.
Right.
They didn't want to help you out. And
Right. They just said, matter of fact, I took a lie to take the test to say that, you
Right.
know, that I got this information, you know. And they came back and they says, guess what, Scott? I said, what? He says, you're lying. I said, I'm lying. I know I'm not lying.
Right.
Okay. And he says, well, it comes up that you're lying. I said, I don't give a fuck what comes up. Okay.
Right.
I'm telling you that I know where this stuff is.
Right.
But see, this time it was different than with Ramzi Youssef.
Right.
This time I had an investigator, and Angela Clemente,
Okay.
and I forget the guy's name, Dr. something. That they had connections to Congress and everything. Everything that I was all paper trail.
Right.
Okay, and that's what with the paper trail, everything was solid, and it when actually they didn't want to do nothing. The feds.
Right. They didn't want to help you out.
Nothing at all. So with that, they said they have a connection with the military. He said, what would you want from the military? I said, just a letter to the judge that I did this,
Right.
you know. And
they found the explosives is what it comes down to, right?
But they chased the military.
Oh, wow.
And they said, no, this is not your jurisdiction. Because what happened was when they went to Congress with the paper trail, Congress was getting nervous and told the feds to go there. And they said, no, this guy here, he's just making up a story.
Right.
They says, no, go there. This is no story. It's all written down carefully. Go there. They went there and they found it. And they chased the military. Says, you know, it's our
Right.
jurisdiction. Okay. Then with that, they end up trying to do the same thing, saying that was a scam. That was unbelievable. But they had no shot at it.
Right.
Took a long time after that because, you know, they were saying that it was a scam. And when the government says something, it's hard to, you know, but we had the paper trail.
And did you get a Rule 35 for that, or
No, I couldn't get a Rule 35 for it because the government was saying that it was a scam. And that's where you get a Rule 35
Right.
from. You know what I'm saying? So now with that, we're writing the judge and telling him all this stuff. So now the judge is trying to make it right and saying, listen, he's telling the prosecutors, why don't you give this guy 3 years off his sentence? What is 3 years? They said, no, we're not going to even entertain it. He
Wow.
says, you're not going to entertain for 3 years when he's still got all this other time to do? They says, yeah, we're not going to entertain it. We're giving him nothing. So then he did. The judge says, okay, since you put it that way, I'm giving him 10 years off. So he gives me 10 years off, and my date out now is 2025.
Right.
Okay, which was feasible.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That I could do, I'm saying. You know?
Right.
They appeal it. The higher court goes with them, and they give it back to me. It was like a punch in the gut.
Why do you think they were so vindictive?
I think part of the reason was that if they were to help me, that means they would have to say they believe what I told them.
Right.
That makes me credible. And by me being credible, I had said things about the Vecchio,
Right.
okay, and that would be bad for him, making me credible.
Right.
And also I said things in front of Judge Weinstein. I think at the time I testified
Right.
for Vic Arena and Chucky Russo and a few of the guys that got life sentences for murder.
Right.
And I was up there saying that these people are doing life sentences. They didn't do the murder.
Right.
My father did.
Right.
Okay, so they hated me for that.
Right.
So that's why I believe they were so hard on me.
Right. So, is looking back on the life. I mean, how do you feel about your dad getting you involved in his stuff? Like, it's got to be bittersweet where you're.
Yeah. No, but I would, like me and my father was so close.
Yeah.
Okay, so like when this came out, I just couldn't believe it.
Right.
I just couldn't believe it. I said, I was learning as he was telling me, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck did he involve me for when he was doing this? So I was upset with him, but he was sick at the time as he's telling me everything.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I just backed off, and I stayed, just listening and whatever happens.
Yeah, so your dad had stomach ulcers. He needed a blood transfusion.
Right.
One of the donors had AIDS. He was a bodybuilder. I guess he was using needles to shoot steroids. And,
right.
And I've seen some video of him from news reports and stuff, though. He was a stand-up guy to the end, like saying, I'm sick, but, so what?
Nobody knew what kind of sick he was.
Right.
Because then, I don't even think he knew.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think he would be that vindictive to give blood knowing that he's got that.
Right.
But he was going in and out of the hospital with pneumonia,
Yeah.
So, but that's what it was. He had it, and he gave it to him. But that was like unbelievable,
About a month ago, I brought a girl on whose parents I had arrested, and they got multiple life sentences. And she actually became an advocate for the minimum mandatory sentencing on narcotics cases, and ended up getting her parents eventually released from prison with some kind of amnesty. So I brought her on, and her parents got hammered during the crack era when they were handing out these really crazy sentences.
Right.
They did like 20 years. They deserved to come out.
Right.
But her parents went in when she was 2.
Okay.
And she was telling the story how when she would go visit, when she first could actually understand that her parents were in jail and they committed a crime and everything else, that they wouldn't even let her have physical contact with her mother or father. Like, she couldn't even touch them.
Wow.
They'd be separated or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what goes on in jail, and that's what people don't think about.
Yeah.
Is that physical contact with your family, being able to have some alone time to be able to talk, and the loneliness of prison, and all that.
It's rough. Prison's rough. It's like Billy Catullo even says, you go to prison, it's like you're dead. You're going there. It's like, and then worse than that, my mother passed. I couldn't see her.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? My father, you can't, you don't see him.
Weren't you in the Supermax with Sammy the Bull and Gas Pipe?
I was, Sammy the Bull was passing through. And Gas Pipe, they had him on another range than from where I was.
Right.
And, Sammy, I spoke to Sammy a little bit up there. And, like I said, they made, I left then. I got lucky to get out of there. But not lucky. I mean, what happened was it's an 18-month, three-year program. I'm still there after 8 years, 9 years, 10. I got lawyers, everything, trying to help. 12 years, and I was able to get out of there.
What do you lock down per day? Like
you lock down 23 hours a day.
And when you get out, you're in a confined area by yourself, more
by
or less?
By yourself, yeah.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah. It was something, and 12 years like that. Actually, I got into some shape and probably saved my life, because when I ended up sick, the doctor told me, they said, listen, it's your being fit the way you were that made you get through this.
Wow.
Yeah, so, you know, what I was doing at the time was to pass time. That's all I did was work out.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I was doing crazy 500 burpees. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, sure.
500 burpees, pumping twice. You know what I mean? And there'd be a puddle on the floor there. We had a shower in the room. That was good. And there'd be a puddle there. Matter of fact, one time, the warden was coming by. I didn't know it was the warden. And I just finished. And, you know, the oxygen's out and everything. And I see this guy staring in the cell. I turn around and say, what the fuck are you looking at? But I didn't know it was the warden because he had plain clothes on. He's usually in a suit. So he said, you all right, Greg? After I said what I said. And then he walked away. I said, oh, warden, I didn't know it was you. You know? But, yeah, that's, you know, I just stayed passing time doing that.
Yeah.
You know?
And it was, again, it was probably punishment for your dad and different things too, right?
You can't, you don't see nobody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think my father was, he was gone. When he didn't see me going to Supermax.
Oh, no.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, he was already gone.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I went to the Supermax from after I did that thing with Vic Amuso. And then
what was that? You guys had a beef in, where was that? Was that in Terre Haute, one of those places?
That was in Terre Haute.
What happened? Vic Amuso was...
Well, what happened was the story was coming out about my father, and then, you know, me and him were tight. We were playing handball together, and with the other Joey Testa, a lot of guys, you know. And he started going like, you know, telling all he had a lot of Lucchese guys there.
Right.
Okay, and he would tell them, he said, listen, I know how close this guy was with his father.
Right.
He had to know. Okay, now that was getting back to me, and that was burning me up.
Right.
Burning me up. And, you know, you want to respect he's the boss of the Lucchese family, but, you know, I was in there before you. I built up the most respect that you can get in prison.
Right.
Okay? And now I need this guy to ruin all them years that I did, you know, by talking like that and starting to shun me. So I said, okay, I had enough.
Right.
So what I did was we were all on the range up, you know, together up there, and I spoke to Joey. I said, Joey, why don't you do me a favor? I want to try and talk to Vic, okay? But I know what I'm going to do already.
Right.
And I said, I want to talk to him. I said, why don't you get all the guys to do your job tonight instead of tomorrow morning? Do it tonight so everybody, you know, because Vic in front of everybody's going to start yelling.
Right.
So if I'm up here alone with him, you know what I'm saying? So he says, yeah, I could do that, Greg. Joey does. So that's what he did. I went in, well, I had the cellmate, a young kid, and I told him to tell all these black guys that this is mob business, to mind their business.
Right.
Okay? And they all walked off as soon as they heard that. You know, they respected it, you know.
Right.
And with that, you know, I went in the room, you know, and I did have an iron piece to make my fist, because I'm gonna, you know, if he answers wrong. But he beat me to the punch, because I said to him, I says, you know, Vic, how would you like that I would say to you that you knew what Gas Pipe was going to do? He was your partner. He was your best friend, and you knew about it.
Right.
As soon as I said that, he grabbed a bowl, and he tried to hit me. He grazed my head, okay? And then it was on. I hurt him real bad. And matter of fact, you know, I had him all bleeding. I was holding him down at the bed, hitting his head against the wall. And then I told him, I says, all right, Vic, I says, you had enough. Don't ever disrespect me like that again, you know. So I started walking out. He jumped up, he grabbed me again, and we started again, okay? Now this time, I'm really, really getting on him.
Right.
There's blood all over the place. So with that, now I got his throat, and I'm squeezing. I got him in the corner of the bed, and I'm squeezing him. And I'm starting to see him go out. So I let loose a little bit. I says, Vic, I'm going to get up and walk away now, okay? Don't do what you did the last time. Because if you do that, if you jump up, Vic, I'm going to kill you. I'm telling you now. He knows me, and he knows that's going to happen.
Right.
Okay? So with that, he stood there. I went out, tried to clean up, which I did clean up, and he got help. you know, they rushed him to the hospital. And now what they do is they lock down the joint.
Right.
Now they look at everybody's hands. They strip search you, you know, to see if there's any marks. So as they're walking by me, there's this 6'6" at least lieutenant and a regular 5'8" guy. Okay, so the CO checks me out. He tells his boss. He says, "He's good, Lieutenant," and they start walking. The 6'6" guy says, "Come back." The CO comes back. He says, "Scott, bend down. Show him your head." So I go like this there. He looks at he says, "Bingo." That was that bowl that he called me with, you know, and that was it, you know. So I got locked up there. So between that and the new indictment, now we got another indictment. Okay, right. The second case of mine never made it out. So between that, saying, well, this guy can't get rehabilitated. Okay, he gets another indictment while he's in here running a criminal enterprise or another RICO. Right. Okay, and the thing with Vicar Musso, nobody, you know, they put me to Colorado. Wow. Yeah. No, and they would, and trying to get out, trying to get back to Indiana, they said, no, we don't want them. Wow. So now they were checking other federal joints. No, we don't want them. So I was stuck there. Wow. And until we were able to make an interstate compact deal, I made it to the state joint, Iowa State Penitentiary. Wow. I went there.
How was that place? That's got to be crazy.
Well, when I got there, getting out of Colorado for 12 years.
Right. You'll take it.
I sat down at the bench. There was this green grass. There was no green grass in Colorado. There's all cement. So I'm over there looking at the green grass, baseball field, handball courts, basketball, tennis. I says to myself, I said, maybe I'm fucking free over here. So, but that didn't last long. I knew I wasn't free long, but it felt it. You know what I'm saying? And that was it. It felt real good for a while, and then that got old too. You know, you're in prison, you know. But at least I was getting visits, you know. So that was all good, you know. Then getting visits over there, and well, while I was in Colorado, you know, what kept me going was this girl that wrote me, okay, and we started going back and forth and stuff like that, and we ended up close and started dating, and she started visiting me.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, it helped out a lot.
Right?
She ended up, excuse me?
It saved you, right?
Yeah. She ended up getting an apartment over there because she was coming to visit me so much, which was great. You know, you getting a visit like that, you know, your girlfriend now, you know what I'm saying? It was beautiful. And with that, she got an apartment over there, and once she had the apartment and things, you know, I hate to say this, but that when COVID hit, that was, you know, so bad for everybody. Right. It was good for me. I hate to say that, but it was good for me. Right. Because I had my weakened immune system from the cancer. Right. And then with that, they actually said that, you know, they come out with a ruling that a compassionate release if you're immune and if you got this, blah, blah. So we write now a motion, long letters and everything like that from everybody, family, to the judge that got appealed on. And he lost his appeal and gave me back the 10 years, remember? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So now, with that, we send it to him again, okay? He's got the opportunity now. I'm feeling good, I says, because he wasn't happy that they appealed him like that. Right. You know what I'm saying? So, didn't take long. And I come back from outside. When I come from outside, before I lock in, it's 4 o'clock, I always call Deanna. You know, that was her name. Right. And I would call her up and say, I'm getting locked in, I'll call you later. So when I called her, she says, Greg, I'm losing my breath right now. She says, you know, I can't talk. I said, what's the matter? You know? So she says, you got to hold on. I said, honey, you know I can't hold on. I got to lock in. I'm going to get in trouble. She says, no, you got to. I says, hon, I'm going to hang up. She says, no, wait. And she clicks off. Next thing I know, she's three-way. My lawyer gets on with me. And she says, Greg. I says, yeah. Georgia? She says, yeah. She says, congratulations, you're going home.
Wow.
I mean, forget about it, you know.
Wow.
It was big, you know. So I couldn't even talk. I said, wow, you know. And then she says, and the judge had ordered that he wants you out by Monday. So, and it was already Thursday. So, you know, it was like amazing.
Wow.
You know, so when that time came, you know, it was Thursday now. It's getting around the prison, you know, the counselors and stuff like that.
Right.
And so it was all worked out that, actually now what they did, it was funny because they says, listen, Greg, we want you out now. We can't wait until Monday. We don't want to take the chance something happens, and we got a federal judge saying that he wants you out by Monday, and say it gets locked down, something happens in here. I said, well, I got no place to go right now. Deanna's coming to pick me up Monday, okay? So they said, well, can we call her? I said, you could call her, but she's doing rehab. She got a knee replacement. Right. So they said, well, we're going to call her. I said, well, yeah, call her. I says, but he said, don't you have anybody else that you know out here? I said, no, I got a friend. I said, but who knows? You know what I mean? He's all the way in Des Moines. I said, I don't know if, you know. So they ended up calling her and telling her that, you know, we wanted to get out of here now. Right. So, and I'm telling him I can't go until Monday. So now the funny thing, all these years I'm trying to get out. Now I'm fighting to stay in. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. Until Monday. And with that, then she says, well, are you saying that he could get out now? And they says, yeah. She says, okay, I'll be there tomorrow morning. Wow. And that's what it was. She was there. And let me tell you something. When I was walking out my property with the thing in, I says to myself, them gates ain't going to open. Something's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? It just 32 years. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And, man, it opened. And, you know, then she takes me to the apartment that she's got. Now, I'm down, then I'm going to go to Florida and go where my sister is. Right. So we go to the apartment. As soon as, you know, now you're in a cell all those years. The apartment looked like the Taj Mahal. Like. Right. I said, no, you know something, honey? We're staying right here. Yeah. So we stayed there about a year. Before, before we went, you know. That 30 below zero up over there for a month straight, I said, forget about it. You know what I mean?
Are you guys still together? Or?
Well, just recently, well, probably now, we were together, but then it just, you know, I hate to say this, but you really don't know the person until you live with them. Right. But we had the greatest time. We really did. Yeah. I love the girl. I mean, she helped a lot. Absolutely. She helped with the legal stuff and everything. She was there 100% for me. You know what I mean? And together we went out. We got an apartment together in Florida. Nice place, you know. And it just, you know, like she tells me that she got overworked, that she changed the way she did. Right. She was working in legal. That's why she was so much help for me, too. She knows the legal. And she just says, Greg, you got to understand I was overworked, okay? I said overworked. She was bringing home the work. And then she was doing it in the morning. So I never, you know, now we were just having some beefs, and it just got bad. And we said we was best off.
That's life, too. Yeah. That's a lot of relationships go that way.
Right.
But thank God you guys had each other at the time. Right. And, I mean, mentally, to get through 23 hours a day with letters.
Yeah, it was big. Yeah. She was there, like I said, 100%. And she's still my friend. You know what I mean? I talk to her. She's.
How is life for you today?
Well, lifetime, you know, it's good. I mean, you know what I mean? After all that, you know what I mean? It's beautiful. I go to the beach when I can. I got a pool outside the place where I'm living. Right. You know what I mean? It's just beautiful.
Do you need a roommate? It sounds better than what I got.
Actually, I'm a roommate to my sister right now. You know.
Yeah, and you get to see grandkids and kids.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
So, yeah.
Beautiful. You know.
Well, hey, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. Unbelievable story, unbelievable life. I'm glad you're out here today and you can enjoy it.
And like I said, you know, we could probably go further into it, but like I got this docu-series, you know, that's being worked on, and a lot of stuff is going to come out there too, you know what I mean? So that, you know, but I think we covered a lot.
Well, there's two separate fans. There's the ones that want all the gory details and the ones that want to know about the life.
Right.
And, you know,
Yeah.
that's, you know, something, too, that how you make money. People don't understand how the mob makes money. And it's
Right.
just
There's
basically, you know, anything
every
you can
which
do.
way.
Right.
Every which way.
Right.
You know what I mean? We're going to make money.
Yeah.
You know? And that's what we did, you know.
All right, Greg. Well, hey, God bless. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And,
Thank
maybe
you for
we'll
having
do this
me.
again. You know,
Thank you for having me. And I do want to say again, you youngsters out there,
Right.
don't get involved. This is treachery at its best, this kind of life. You don't want it. You won't last. You'll end up hurting your best friend. And if you don't, you're going to go.
Right.
Or you're going to go to prison forever. So think about that. Listen to me. I've been there.
Thanks, Greg.
You're welcome.